You're listening to the Not Just Numbers podcast, a conversation with mathematicians on their work and their lives to get to know them and discuss common biases and misconceptions. Hi everybody, welcome to a new episode of Not Just Numbers. I'm sitting here as always with Marit van Straaten.
Hello.
And today we are joined by Cristóbal, Bertoglio and Juan Peypouquet to talk about applied mathematics. You have seen from the title Maths in the Real World, and I guess we will discuss today what this means, what is the real world, and let's see where this goes. So, Juan and Cristóbal, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit what your research is about in a way that is understandable for somebody that knows nothing about mathematics? I see you are pointing at each other, so I'll start with Cristóbal.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for inviting and really pleased to be here. So I'm Cristóbal. I'm originally from Chile. I lived there till I was 20-something, and then I start moving around different countries. First I did an exchange in Germany, in Erasmus, and then I just then went back to Chile to finish my studies, and then I went to France for the PhD, then Germany for a postdoc, and then back to Chile for a while. And actually, the month I left the place I was working in Chile, Juan arrived to work there. So we never met there. And then I moved to Groningen, and then Juan followed me, and a few years later, and we're here sitting together doing a podcast. So that's. So I originally studied civil engineering, but it's not the same way that people study engineering here. So in Chile, we have this kind of a bit, I think, inspired from the old French, still the French system, that you do first a few years in math and physics and basic science. It's like about 3 years. We only do maths and probability, statistics, chemistry, computer science. Maybe I'm forgetting something, but that's basically so 1.5 years of calculus. Like it's more intense in terms of math. I would say that is the program here. It's more extended, and then you decide what to do, and then you choose you pick some kind of specialization. You can do physics, you can do some engineering, and many types of engineering. So you only decide later. And then you pick up like a subspecialty. So it's like 6 years. So in civil engineering, I did structural engineering, which is basically more like computing, and a lot of computational mechanics. And so the good thing is that I find it great that you don't have to decide when you are 18 what you want to do for the rest of your life, and you are discovering what's going on the way. And so what happened is that. And I studied there, and now I'm doing research in imaging, medical imaging, and partial differential equations. So the question is how I got there. And that's basically because during the studies, I started doing like optional courses in mathematics, so more applied mathematics and numerical mathematics. And at the same time, I needed to I have to do some engineering internships, like to go to a company or something like that. My father is a doctor, and I was always going back home for the holiday, and he said, well, I can find for you an internship in the hospital where he worked. And I went there. I was in the 3rd year of studies, and then just started to work with the people repairing stuff, with janitors and so on. So I was with them like 2 months. And then that gave me the opportunity to look at many places inside the hospital. And I saw something drove me like to be in a hospital. I couldn't explain why, but I really enjoyed being in the hospital. And I saw a lot of weird things or unpleasant things, but it's somehow the ambience, and it was something that really appealed to me. And then I went for an exchange to Germany, and I was in a student housing, and I saw a book in German on if you study mathematics, what to do next. And I started to look at it, and I opened on a page that some professor in Leipzig was talking about mathematics and cancer research, and that actually drew me. And I contact one of her PhD students, and I was traveling through Germany. I visit the institute, and this is how I started my curiosity on in the medical side, and then slowly, and then I searched for a PhD that related numerical mathematics and the medicine, and then now I'm here.
Wow, there was really serendipity there with that book.
Yeah.
It's also funny to hear that at first you didn't set out to become a mathematician in that way.
Well, I'm only a part-time mathematician, I would say. So we prove stuff from time to time, but it's not the only thing or the main thing we do. So if you go to the office, my students, they're coding most of the time. So that I would rather say that more a computer scientist than a mathematician. And then we're looking at the application. So with a big part of our research, or we try that an important part of our research is really interact on a regular basis with the doctors and imaging scientists to really get from the first hand what are the actual problems they're dealing with and how to contribute from our side.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. And Juan, what about you?
Okay, I would also like to start by thanking you for the invitation. It's very kind of you to have thought about me for this podcast. And I guess I should start from the beginning. When I was in high school, I didn't like literature and history and geography very much. I was more into the science part, so I already knew that my future was more or less on that side. I also would have been happy to become a dancer, but that just didn't happen. It was not possible for several reasons. And when it was time to start the university, I had also very big doubts because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I had fortunately good grades. And I grew up in Venezuela, by the way. And in Venezuela, just like in Chile, you have the universities select the students they admit. So a bit like the United States as well. So you have to take a test and then go to see if the university accepts you. And I knew that I wanted to study something related to science, probably science engineering on that side. And there was this university which was very good in Caracas that was called Simón Bolívar University. It's still called that way. There was a first year which was common for all the science majors, essentially. And then a second year that was a little bit more specialized, but not that much. And then from the third year on, you were really specialized. So I thought that it was a good idea, just the same as Cristóbal said, you're not really sure when you're 18 what you want to do for the rest of your life. And you think when you're 18 that what you study is going to stick with you for the rest of your life, which is not necessarily true as well. So I started this common core of engineering and science. And after my second year, I started studying industrial engineering. And also because I wasn't ready to choose, and industrial had like a little bit of everything. But I was very quickly disappointed. And I said, well, maybe I'm sure that this is not what I want. And what do I have fun with? So I had a very big vocational crisis at that moment, and I started looking at biology on one side because I had always liked sharks in particular, for some reason. So I even started taking a few courses in biology, especially marine biology. So I really wanted to change from industrial engineering. So my options were biology and then languages, so translation, interpretation. And the third option was, I really had lots of fun in high school when I was studying math and doing the homeworks and helping my classmates. And I thought I was not very bad at it. So that was the other choice. And then I started thinking a lot and talking to lots of people, and I took vocational tests. But the vocational tests are kind of dumb because you can cheat on them. You can trick them to tell you whatever you want. The questions are very obvious, so it's difficult not to. But in the end, I was leaning more towards either biology or mathematics because I didn't have to change to another university. And but everybody told me, well, if you study mathematics, what are you going to do afterwards? And especially in Venezuela, there's no much field for a mathematician to make a career other than at universities and teaching. But I said, well, this is what I enjoy the most for the moment, and I'm going to study that, and after that, I'll see. And I liked it a lot. I had lots of fun. I just was like doing it for the fun of it. I also was working almost half full time at the same time. So it was lots of things to do. And I started specializing in more on the pure side of mathematics. So at the end of the bachelor studies, I did my thesis on, let's say, functional analysis or the theory of functions, bit of operator theory on that side, but very, very abstract. And then I went to a summer school in Chile where there were several courses especially in applied mathematics. So I learned a little bit of convex analysis or calculus of variation, something like that, and a bit of more applied functional analysis, a couple of courses on that line. And I liked it. And I liked the university and I liked the professors. And they offered me a scholarship after the summer school. And they said that I could do my thesis part in Chile, part in France, and get a double degree. So it was like, very difficult to say no, especially if you don't really know what you're going to do and you get that offer that is very concrete. So I decided, and the situation in Venezuela was already getting very complicated from social, economic, and political point of view. So I decided to move to Chile, and I was thinking that I was going to continue with the functional analysis and some theoretical things related to applied mathematics, but not necessarily that much. And then I discovered optimization, which I had never seen before. My supervisor told me, proposed to me that I could link the study of differential equations with, which is something that I thought I hated when I was in my bachelor, and numerical optimization. And he explained to me how different iterative algorithms work and how there is some sort of underlying continuous model that is a bit fuzzy, but kind of drives the iterations of the algorithms towards the solutions of the problems. So I was studying that connection between the underlying dynamics and the actual iterative algorithms that people implement in computers. And I like that very much. And then after I finished my PhD, I started working more deeply into the algorithmic part. So now what I am doing is trying to understand better the methods that are used to solve optimization problems from a practical point of view, and try to improve those methods by several considerations that includes ideas from physics, such as inertia or momentum, those kinds of things, or geometric also considerations like curvature of the values of the functions, and try to make algorithms faster. But what I like the most about that is to study the theoretical guarantees of the convergence rate of the algorithm. So how much time do you have to invest using an algorithm in order to get a sufficiently good, sufficiently approximated solution, or something that is close to a solution of the problem, say. So I'm in applied mathematics. I think everybody would classify optimization in applied mathematics, but I'm more on the theoretical side of that area of mathematics. And I've come to see that, well, on the one hand, the boundaries between pure and applied mathematics are very, very blurry. There are parts of the area where the natural questions are more directed towards the fundamentals of the theory, and others that are more connected to the applications or the phenomena that motivated the appearance of these areas of research. So, it is difficult to classify one person's research into applied or non-applied, because it's already difficult to classify an area or a subdiscipline or a line of research that way.
No, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
We will come back to this very soon once we move our discussion toward the theme of the episode.
I would like to add, I once heard, I don't know who said that, or I don't know if I heard it or I read it, but someone said that pure mathematics is just applied mathematics that hasn't found its applications.
Nice one.
So, yeah.
I'm quite curious because you presented two similar yet very different ways you arrived at what you do. And from what you were saying, Cristóbal, it seems like being in the medical environment and perhaps working with patients or benefit patients and doctors was somehow part of your drive. So my question is, what is that lights this spark when you work on what you work on that makes you excited of doing it?
Well, at this very moment, I would say everything. So there is nothing in particular that I would say that motivates me more. I'm enjoying every moment of the day at the moment. So I like a lot working with the students and sitting with us, all the meetings with students, with PhD students and master students. There are or bachelor students also. They're very nice. I really enjoy them. I had to see how they progress and have questions and try to answer the questions themselves, and so say compare a bit where they start or where they at the moment they finish. That I enjoy a lot. It's maybe the most important part of my work. But then, of course, the other part that I try to foster is the meeting with the clinicians.
So we are back after a technical issue. Unfortunately, we have lost the last 20 minutes of discussion, but we can restart from where we were. So, Cristóbal, you were telling us about one of your main difficult points in the work when you were talking with the physicians.
Yeah, so I think that's not the only issue when talking with the physicians. Is also when you do your own research, which is more, in my case, mathematical oriented. It's about finding that you spend most of your time finding the right question to ask. And that happens as well as with my PhD students, that we believe that this is the question we want to answer, and we realize at some point that the question doesn't make fully sense as we posed at the beginning, because we were neglecting some effects or whatever that could be. It's the same with the physicians. So we they actually don't often, they have an issue in mind that something is not working as they would like to. Some patients are not improving, or they feel they are doing too many, or they're treating lesions that they maybe would be better not to treat, because treating also, so you don't make the patient healthy, you just compensate somehow for the disease. So then you need to try to find the question that you think you can answer, and then trying to answer that question, and you see that it's not actually, it won't work, and then you iterate and so on. So what I was saying before is that I've been lucky enough in Groningen, in the sense that since I have an academic hospital here, the physicians are also, well, they do research, and they are used to this type of work. And if things don't work at the beginning, then they go for it again, and then you find together what's the actual clinical question that you can try to answer with the tools, with the mathematical tools or with the software that's it. And I don't know if Juan also has a similar opinion.
Yeah, well, I agree that asking the questions is a hard part of the job, and it may happen that we take a long time, weeks, months, even years to ask the right questions, and then there's a lot more work in answering those questions. And probably the process of asking questions that are maybe not the right ones is also a thing that is also a formative experience. And something that I've seen is that, for example, when you talk to students, for bachelor students in math, you usually ask them very closed questions that are very clear, and they are they really know exactly what you're expecting them to answer, even if they don't know always the answer to that, or they don't know how to solve the problem. But they kind of have the question asked for them. And then when the students get a little bit more advanced in master, then you start opening the questions a little bit more and telling them, okay, we have this situation, this this problem was solved, but here in this context that is very similar but slightly different, that doesn't work because we cannot apply this here. So how do you think we could modify the arguments that we used here, or the method that we use to solve this problem, in order to be able to tackle this one? And then it goes on, and it gets more and more difficult because the questions are just not there, and it takes a lot of effort. And I think this fact that when you're doing more applied projects, you have to also talk to people who are not mathematicians and don't have the technical knowledge, but they are the people who have the problems and also know for example, the technical limitations of their machines. And in the case of patients, they know how the treatments work. They know the physiology of it all that we don't know. And it is very important to be able to understand them and getting them to understand us. And it's, a big part is on us to explain the part that we know in terms that they can understand. And they'll do the effort to explain their part to us so that we can understand them. So this, it turns out that communicating what you know and what you are able to solve and the problems that you have is a very, very important skill. And I don't think we get proper training for that. I would find it very nice, very useful if, I don't know, even science programs in high school had some more delved more into how science is communicated. But yeah, I think in applied mathematics it takes a special it has a particular relevance.
Yeah, I particularly like something that you mentioned in the part that we lost, that you were suggesting that in secondary school an exercise that could be done that goes in this direction, for example, is we do a lot of reading the text, understanding and summarizing it. And we do it a lot on literature and perhaps some small essays. But it would be nice to do it also on more scientific tests, even if it's popular science. But then there is the issue that the teachers need also the knowledge in science to make sure that the summaries and the texts that are presented are correct. And this is also an issue in general if you take popular science or journalism, that many journalists do not have the scientific background to clearly grasp what is being told. And also on us, because we lack this training, to be able to pass our ideas to them by filtering out all these years of knowledge and being used to talk to basically either our students that already have pretty much all the knowledge they need at the point of their course, or experts in our conferences.
Yeah, I remember what we were saying. And it is true that at some point I mentioned that in high school, or at least the experience that I had in Venezuela, was that you have a literature course or a language course, and then a science course or a biology or physics and chemistry and math, and they're completely unrelated to each other. And some things that are useful that we learn, for example, in the language courses, like to get the main ideas of a text, to summarize, to write a series of highlights of what is important in the text, is something that would be super useful in science courses as well. But I guess the science teachers don't necessarily have the skills to teach that. And the language teachers don't necessarily have the science background for that. So it's very complicated. And I don't know if in other countries it's done more, or if there's more team teaching so that you have project-oriented courses already in elementary school and high school, where you can get a bit of different subjects and then combine them in something closer to what a real-life experience would be. So that is something that I find interesting. And this thing, some people don't necessarily realize is that we as scientists have a lot of instances or occasions for communication that are completely different. And the contexts are different, the people we talk to are completely different. And I think the skills that are needed are also completely different. For example, it is not the same when you're at a specialized conference where all the audience are people who know very well your domain, what you're talking about. They know everything, all the basics, and they know what the important questions in the past or in the recent past have been, and what has driven innovation in those areas. But then if you, even if you stay in mathematics, but you talk to people who are researchers in other areas of mathematics, they are going to already lack the terminology. And so you really need to organize your talks in a very different way and go from the beginning and really identify what the highlights of what your research is and what the impact can be and so on. And then, okay, so there's the mathematicians. You could also, I don't know, go in the science fair or something like that for general audience and talk to people who have nothing to do with science. And then you would have to choose your words completely differently and organize the whole idea that you want to convey is going to be different. As you were saying, you really have to get rid of all the technicalities and all the preconceptions, everything that you know and you assume other people to know as well. So that's completely different. And when you talk to students, and then it's not the same at bachelor students, master students, and PhD students. And then if in the case of when you participate in more applied projects, then you have to also talk to non-mathematicians, but in a very technical, you need to really get to the depth of the technicalities that are involved in the problem. So it's completely different from what the kind of interaction that you have with people that are not mathematicians but are just there because they want to be informed. They want to have a little bit of contact of what is being done. But you really need to get into the very, 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 very specific details of the problem and the technical aspects and how to solve it. So yeah, there are lots of different skills that you would need to learn. And it would be very, very good if someone found a way to systematically teach us how to do that, because you usually learn a little bit here and there, and well, some people get better at certain aspects, other people get better at other aspects, and well, of course, you cannot master everything, and you have to find your niche, but it would be good to have a reasonable knowledge, at least, of the basics of communicating in different situations.
Yeah, I think that's very interesting to hear, because I'm a student and I did not think that communicating would be so important when you're a professional mathematician. And it kind of seems that we don't get taught in that way. Like we have to present sometimes a project or a paper, but it's not in the same way that when you have to talk to people that you're doing a project with, but they are physicians and you are a mathematician trying to find out the question that they want to have answered.
Yeah. Well, our students get a kind of, I don't know the first, but the one a shot to do that in the internship in the master. So in the program master applied mathematics, you have to do an internship, and For instance, the students I supervise there, they often do internships at hospitals, but they work on the mathematical part, and then they have to present the results back, and they have to really be careful how they select, how we choose to present that and to make it understandable for clinicians. So, of course, it could be done more broadly because it's an important skill. If you work later in a company, even the other people, the CEO of the company won't be a mathematician eventually, or the finance. Well, some are, but I don't know. The CFO probably won't be a mathematician. So I think it's a very important skill, and students need to be aware that it's very relevant. And actually, we as researchers learn it quite late when we only start maybe teaching, or we start writing grant proposals, where a big part of the grant is just explaining to people who are not experts what we want to do and why it is relevant.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of work there to do, and probably there should be more investments from the university in that sense. But also from our point of view of revising the curriculum in such a way that we show that this is important, and then we make a point for it. So I would say that in this sense, talking to people that are not mathematicians somehow is one of the challenges that we face while growing into our jobs. And I'm curious to hear in your paths toward becoming mathematicians, there were other important challenges that you had to face and that you had to somehow work through until where you are?
Challenges. Well, I think people who study mathematics or mathematics-related topics, they are kind of at some point good students, right? So you were a good student in high school, you had good grades in math, and maybe other subjects, maybe worse grades in others. But so it's everyone like going from. I know it's kind of easy at the beginning, and then the first shock is at the university when you start also meeting people from other schools, at least in the case of Chile, that you had completely different levels, and some people were much better prepared. And then every time you do like a jump, for instance, I remember when I started doing the PhD, then you go a level up in some sense, and you start meeting very clever people, very hardworking people. And that happens every time you go a level up. And I think in terms of challenge, of course, doing the PhD, facing some things that didn't work in the PhD, of course, was also fun to figure out. And sometimes, in my case, I did the PhD in France, so it was challenging for me to also deal with the French culture, especially the French scientific culture, which is a very nice experience, but also challenging. But also a big challenge, and I have to stress this, is later to find a more stable job. And I think we are sitting here face that at some point. It takes time to find your place, to be very lucky, and you have to be very lucky. I think in my situation, like getting to Groningen, it took me about 50 applications in many countries. Well, as I say, so at the moment I was working here in Groningen, and then I also got some other opportunities somewhere else. So it's but I had to wait quite long. That to happen is also someone who is kind of fixed, and you say I want to do really this, then you have to be really flexible in the place. If you want to stay in a certain place or country, especially in a smaller country like as in the Netherlands, so it's you have to be more flexible in what you want to do, and also moving to industry or being flexible to move from academia to industry. So I think that's one big challenge, because also comes at the time that you may start having family or you have a partner, and the question is, okay, I'm applying to 10 different countries, and what's the partner going to do? And maybe the partner is also doing the same. So that's I think the biggest challenge, in my opinion. Well, then, of course, after you get your kind of pseudo-permanent position, or in our case, tenure track position, then you have to start learning a lot of things. You have to start learning how to teach properly if you didn't have the relevant teaching experience. it can be very, very traumatic. From the evaluation point of view, it's very tiring when you start preparing the course, and you need to start, once you get students, you need to learn how to manage them the right way. And at some point, the things I've been very lucky because the group has grown over the years, and then you need to start. We work with, say, actual application. That means you have a lot of data. We need to manage a very large amount of data with privacy issues too. It's medical data, most of them. Managing the code development. So we're basically computer scientists most of the time, and trying to do some math to support all of that. And also related to IP, so intellectual property. So have to be careful that actually what you're going to use is protected, and in order that someone wants to invest later on it, and you can actually apply it. Open is fine, but if no one can make money at some point, then it won't grow towards the actual application and production. And thinking about valorization now, we are in the recent years. I've been talking a lot to business developers, intellectual property lawyers within the university. That's also part of the job. So they also make it very fun. But medical, how to develop a clinical study, what is important, what actually they want. So trying to understand what doctors want in a clinical study. So statistics. There's not much time for theorems in my case. And catching up with 200 or 500 papers you read that were published, and to try to figure out what's important, what is relevant for you. So I think managing many things at the current job at the same time is trying, at the same time maintaining your health and try to be happy. And for sure, I think having at some point a permanent contract that also gives a lot of space to manage better the timings at the beginning of the tenure track you don't have.
It gives you this confidence that you can slow down a bit and take the time that it's needed, even though, like what we said earlier, that finding the right question can take years, solving it takes other years. Yeah. And we need to find this space to actually address also the research, as well as the time to prepare the teaching, the time to do supervision of students, PhD and master and bachelor. There is a lot more than one thing involved there.
Yeah, exactly. So when Cristóbal was speaking, I was saying, okay, well, I'm going to say this challenge. And then he said it. And then I have this, and then he said it as well. And so he took like the 4 or 5 that I had thought at the beginning. So he already mentioned. But there's a couple more that are probably important to mention as well. You said it a little bit tangentially right now. There's you really need to be patient and perseverant, because it is very easy to get frustrated. Some things just don't work. You have a problem and you are not able to solve it, and you have to relax a little bit and take it with some perspective, and then go on and modify some things and ask other questions. So it is very easy to get frustrated and to just abandon things at some point. But you really need to go that additional bit all the time and have it's not necessarily patience, but the confidence that at some point you're going to get a little bit more. And sometimes it takes very small steps, but many very small steps when you're expecting to just give a big leap. So that's something that is many people struggle with as well. And the other thing that is that maybe many people don't realize is that there are other skills that we as scientists have to develop at some point that have to do with human resources, accounting, and all those things. For example, in Chile, the scientists are a lot more involved in the management, the financial management of the grants. So you really need to have all the invoices and everything and have everything organized and give financial reports about how you've been spending the money and so on, which is something that you don't have here that much. So it also requires a big level of organization, and you need to keep deadlines and so on. So that's another thing that it is very easy to overlook because, when from outside, you don't imagine that scientists are taking care of all those things. You have to buy new equipment, and you have to ask for different quotes from different providers because you need to get 3 quotes of so it's complicated. And then the other thing is, you already said a bit about that, but time management is really an issue. On the one hand, at some point you feel that you're going to be assessed, you're going to be qualified, or I don't know, evaluated in order to progress in your career, and you can get very nervous because you have to accomplish and you have to fulfill all the requirements and match the expectations of the university and of your peers, and that puts a lot of pressure on you. But also at some point when you look at those things with a little bit more perspective and you put the priorities in the rightful place, then sometimes it may happen that you find just many interesting things to do. And you want to do lots of things. And you find, this problem is super interesting, and I could collaborate with this and this people. And my knowledge would be very convenient to apply this. This would be excellent. But there's also this project that I find very interesting because I just like it, because it's, it's mathematically interesting, and there's this project and that project, and now I want to write a book, and you see, and the day only has like 30 hours or something like that. You don't have more than that.
For you, it has 30 hours.
And you really need to prioritize, and at some points you need to accept that this you're not gonna do. And even if you're super enthusiastic with a certain project, you have to say no. Because you have other things to do, and you have to make sometimes difficult decisions about that. There are lots of things like that, and you cannot forget about your students because you have other things. You cannot forget about your teaching, and you have to produce material, and you have to write the evaluations and lots of things. So it's difficult to put all those things in the boxes that constitutes your schedule every week.
I want to summarize everything because I think that you touched the right point. Is the most important, the biggest challenge is how to say no to yourself. And accept that. And once you say no to yourself, then it's easier to say no to to just express that. And not to be afraid about what the others will think about you. And I think we come from a culture, from the Latin American culture, that people tend to say yes to everything and then end up doing anything. And to learn that, especially when you get more busy, is hard. But at some point you do. And I think that's time management wise is the most important thing.
Yeah, I think it's a very important point, and it's also a very hard lesson. And it's also, I think, important to realize that when people see us from the outside, and Marit, correct me if I'm wrong, but also when students think of us, they see the mathematician, the person that does the research, that does the questions and the answer. But in truth, that's part of the job. And we wish for it to be the main part of our job. At least we would love that. But truth be told, we love the interaction with the student. I think it's one of the motivators, at least for me, is part of the drive. We love the interaction among researchers and the collaboration. And I think that's also part of the drive. And we have also what is needed for the job, all the things you said. So there is so much more than just our research, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Like the more I advance in my studies and the more I can talk to people like you, I see that research is only a small part of all the things that you have to do. Yeah.
What we could organize some kind of a day with a professor or a week with a professor, and to that the student just comes with us to everything and we see how it actually goes.
You
That
can
could
maybe
be
start
quite
a vlog.
interesting.
Why not? I mean, if they want to really, they're curious about what our life looks like. That could be the way to go instead of trying to imagine completely artificial
Yeah.
scenario.
I think a lot of students would be interested in that because I think a lot of them don't know what your daily life is about. So now I know that you are all very busy. Thank you so much for being here. But yeah, I can imagine that having to say no sometimes can be hard, especially when it's an interesting project. Yeah.
So we have discussed already a number of times about applied mathematics, even though we were talking about ourselves and our experiences. I think we are pretty much over the mid of the episode, so we should move on the theme pretty soon. But before we head there, I think it's an important question that we always have for our guests, that we are here to show the human side of mathematics. And I think we have shown it already from many different points of view. But I'm curious, what do you do outside mathematics in your free time? Juan?
Well, I like to cook a lot. Yeah, I enjoy that very much, and I like to having people over at home for dinner, especially, or lunch could be as well. But that's something I enjoy very much, and yeah, not just the cooking, but also the entertaining. That's something that I try to do as often as possible because, well, you also get to talk to people in different situations, and it's not just work. And I also do yoga. Now I've been doing it more seriously recently. So yeah, I'm trying to do that as often as I can as well, so several times a week. I'm even considering the possibility to take a teacher training course.
Oh, nice.
At some point, but, and not necessarily because I'm going to do that professionally or do that as
That's
a job.
what everyone says.
Yeah, I know.
Take
I know.
that course.
I know.
Many people haven't taken that course.
Yeah, but it's just to go deeper into the fundamentals. The theory, the philosophy behind it, but also the anatomy and the physiology that comes with that. And I don't know, something that I think maybe I could substitute if one of the instructors is sick. I could give a class from time to time. I mean, not doing professionally, but that could be useful for the rest of the people who practice at the sports center. So yeah, but no, this is just a wishful thinking. I'm just thinking that something that I might do at some point.
Well, I try also to spend time with family and friends. That's very important for me, who are a bit spread a bit everywhere, so I do have to travel a lot for that. But like say in terms of activities, like Juan was describing, the two things I like the most is reading and doing sports. So different types of sports. I also was was going with Juan together to yoga for some time, and then I got some injuries, so I couldn't. But I do like to do sports a lot, and reading. In the last 2 years, I've been reading a lot. So that's it basically.
Yeah, also nice. Thank you. Then it's now time to get to the main topic of this episode. And we've also recorded a episode on more general mathematics. So I'm really interested to hear what your view is on this. But maybe we can start with just a simple question, because I get asked this a lot, like how is applied mathematics different from general mathematics? Juan, do you maybe have an opinion on this?
Okay, so my opinion about general and applied mathematics is that there's no 0-1 classification. So it is very difficult to say this area is pure, or general, fundamental, whatever you want to call it, and this part is applied. But there's a continuum. On one end, you have things that are driven by the curiosity on the abstract objects that are constructed with our ideas. We would construct things, and we are interested in knowing all the consequences of those constructions. That I would say it's the interest in mathematics for the sake of mathematics, and I guess that would be like the more pure, fundamental end of the spectrum. So even we can get to more philosophical questions of what can be known and what can be learned. And then on the other end is, people who work on things that use mathematics, that can be just people from other disciplines that are using techniques that come from mathematics that they have internalized in their own work. And then closer to that end, so as the other end gets close to philosophy, on this end we get close to the actual people from other things that have other problems that are doing applications that use math. And then the more you go in that direction, you have more contact. You start seeing a balance between what is math and what is the other discipline or the actual phenomenon or situation that you're dealing with. And in between there are infinite possibilities. And I think in many areas of mathematics, you see a big part of that spectrum. And even in one person, you can see a big part of that spectrum. For example, I mentioned at the beginning that I like mathematics a lot for the sake of mathematics, because I find it elegant, I find it beautiful. I like it very much when things are really neat and an equation is beautiful and simple. And if the thing had to be square root of 2 and it is square root of 2, then you're happy. Although that is difficult to explain to people who don't do math. But I have also worked on applied projects where, like in the hospitals, we were working with 3 hospitals in Chile where we were trying to identify the appointments that were likely to be missed by the patients. In such a way that the hospitals could take certain measures, like, for example, overbooking certain slots and calling certain patients who were at higher risk of not attending their appointment. And that in that case, it reduced from 19 to 17% the no-show rate of those hospitals where we tried the mathematical tools that we implemented there. So yes, in one person you can find lots of things, and you are driven by different questions of different natures. And I don't know if this distinction between applied or not is useful. Sometimes it can be, I guess, because, well, I guess if you, as a student, you say you have a master in applied mathematics, then maybe if you look for a job in the industry, it would be easier for them to consider you better than a person who studied your mathematics. But it that's marketing or that's just terminology that doesn't really make a difference. Mathematics also gives you a way to organize your mind and to think algorithmically and logically and solve problems considering all the possibilities and not just assume things that are not necessarily true because you think they are very likely. It is very difficult to give a definition of applied mathematics because of that. So yeah, I think that is even difficult to classify people into being applied or theoretical mathematicians. So I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I really like your view of mathematics in a person, that it's kind of like a spectrum.
Yeah.
Because we're not an absolute mathematician in only this specific one area. Like people do multiple things often.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Cristóbal, what about you?
Yeah, I want to compliment. I fully agree with what Juan said, but how I could complement it is that citing a Russian mathematician, friend of mine, who talked more about applicable mathematics rather than applied, and also making the connection to other languages, because I think what I like about languages is it gives you different perspectives of the same thing. So in Dutch or German, you don't talk about applied, you talk about technical.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe a more accurate. Well, it's a pointer to the same thing. Is that what you do? So it's where the problem comes from. So as Juan mentioned, so it's a more general pure mathematics. The problem comes from mathematics itself. The origin of the problem is a mathematical issue, while maybe in, say, applied / applicable / technical, the problem comes from a technological issue. And then you write it abstractly, and then you still do math.
Yeah.
So the both are math,
Yeah.
are equally math. The thing is that there may be some applied or technical mathematicians that also have this drive to work on the applications themselves, that they do the math, that they are their inspiration. And then in that sense it happens that the same person could have different types of work within the same day. So that happens a lot with, I don't know, when I usually try to arrange the meeting with students within the same day or the same half the day for time management reasons. Then I have more time free to think, to write, or to read. And then I have a student comes with a more mathematical, theoretical issue. Others come more like as debugging their code, and the other is like then the medical doctor enters to the office, and we start talking about patients and procedures and statistical power. So it's like, I think what could happen. It's not necessarily the case, but I think there is a high correlation in that an applied mathematician tends to have broader interests, not just in math. So I think maybe it's not 100% the case, but as I see you and what I see in the other colleagues, they all have some kind of applied, some collaborator more in the engineering side, for instance, or maybe in social sciences, like in your case with hospitals, or in my case. So they always work with someone that is more applied, or more in the technical side of the issue. And that's more rare to see in people doing general math. But at the end of the day, it's more that both are math. It's not that one is not math and the other is. Yeah. So if you go to I listen to students a bit somehow disappointed in the sense that they go to an applied math course and they still see theorems and proofs. And
Yeah.
So that's important, and that also makes it different, and in my eyes a bit better than a more, say, physics or engineering study, where you actually understand, you have the tools or the mental intellectual framework to understand exactly what's going on, and to really be able to claim. That's basically it's when are you sure about something and when you just don't know. So instead of trying to guess all the time what's going on.
So you put the rigor of mathematics at the service of that.
You push it at the limit, but I think what I try to do, and maybe you try to do it in your applied projects, there is a line when you, from there on, you say, I cannot prove that this is going to work in the way you expect. We will just try it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Some colleagues, they don't like it. The applied mathematicians, I know that they are more they stay more in the in doing the theory. Yeah. Others, they love it because I think that the going to a field to a game feel of playing where you actually don't know what's going to happen, it's also a lot of fun. But it's at the same time extremely rewarding when you suddenly discover, okay, you understand what's going on and you can prove it, and you make it move that boundary a bit further. And so as an example, so you know when the doctor, so this medical doctor I was mentioning that it runs, I don't know, 200 simulations in arteries of flows, way more than what I have done or my students have done. And you know, the first results in the first cases, it didn't work, the simulations blow up, you know, nothing was working, things were strange. I was sure that it has to work, but there was a theorem that says it has to work. And the mistake may come from the implementation, from visualizing the results, when he was putting some strange values in the simulations. And then when finally and then to be sure about that gives you the confidence to really to keep trying until it works. And then it worked 200 times. And we haven't tried more. But it will work 1,000 times. Yes. And this is very important, for instance, when you want to ensure that technology, you want to actually use the technology to be able to answer in how many cases it's going to deliver the results you expect. And this is important for legal approval, for example. So now we have been some discussions that, okay, we want to use it in clinical studies. And one of the doctors asked, is this approved? Like, is your device, which is the software you develop, approved legally? Otherwise, we cannot even ask for an ethical approval for doing the study. Okay. And I ask how hard is to approve? When you have to fill like 100-page formula and send it somewhere and claim why you, and we still haven't done that. But again, it's like even I have to deal with the legal things. Yeah. And of course, many people don't want to do that. So either they partner up with someone, but also I discovered that if you really want your stuff to be used, at some point you need to make your hands dirty and deal with this, even if you sacrifice maybe to do some math, but because you believe that this is important to do. And many of these things you do only once, and then it's a bit of copy-paste. But you need to do it at least once, or find the right people to help you, and that takes also time.
Isn't it also in some way rewarding when you have to fill in a 100-page paper because what you found is actually useful in clinical trials? Yeah,
it's a bit the other way around. You need to fill it before.
Oh.
So there is also risk.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's fine. I know it's confusing. So you have to fill it before you request for the ethics approval for the clinical trial. Oh. So it may be that you do that, and then still it doesn't work.
Oh. But there's something before that you already did that tells you that the system that you have developed can be useful.
Then math come back, but it's just not, for some people it's just not enough. So when you talk to the doctors and you talk to people, I have a theorem that tells that it works, and it already I tested, I know, in 20 cases and always works, and I know it will work in 1 million of cases if you ask me for. So why are we having this discussion? That's just not enough legally, because it's still a software that is derived for solving an equation where you have a theorem backing it up, needs to be approved as a device. So I like it, right? So, but if you need to have this drive to push this forward, and you also start figuring out that almost no one does it. So the moment you start, at least you take one of the projects and start pushing it forward, and you still keep doing your basic research and your theorems and your simulations and analysis and so on, and push one of the projects forward, that gives you an idea what you will have to do if you would like to push another one of the projects forward. So, and again, you need time to do that. Yeah. So you need a quite long-term perspective, and you need that we as academics are also rewarded in the system. I had a discussion with a colleague in a conference 2 months ago, and we're discussing about this, and we also realized that we are not rewarded for developing software, for instance. So most of our time is consumed by developing software, and for example, in tenure track system, we are not rewarded for that. We will be only if our software becomes open source and so on, or really comes directly into, we license it to an industry and so on. But that comes in the very long term. All the research we do, for example, in our group and the computational math group, it comes with a software all the time. So you are developing code every day, and that burns almost all your time. It's really like it's the same as doing experimental work in a lab. You have to build the machine, build the device, and that takes tons of your time. So that's not the reward so far, and it's still something we could be changed.
I know nothing about the tenure track procedures or anything, but what could be a reason that you're not rewarded for this?
Well, indirectly, it took you too long, and you didn't produce whatever else is required for the system. Because you were developing software, you couldn't write enough articles.
Okay.
So imagine you could be debugging your software for months. So that delayed also your article or articles for months. And at some point, you have to submit your portfolio for promotion, and you basically are delayed. You don't have the required number of articles that you need. So
I see. Yeah.
It's basically that criteria that give you promotion are also criteria that are public facing. So the quality and amount of publications you have, the invitations to conferences, public lecturers, keynote speakers, grant money that you bring here, student that you bring here, which are also a source of income for the university. The administrative work that you do as chair or member of committees around big national level, local level, faculty, university department, those are all things that are somehow publicly facing, and then those are the ones that are giving the most recognition.
Yeah.
And of those then is research, teaching, and rest, I would say. We were discussing it where we were talking about public engagement, that there is an epsilon recognition for public engagement, but it's basically not recognized. There is.
Yeah.
Well,
but,
I guess
I want to just shortly mention that it's not necessarily more difficult than when you do, say, just mathematics, either applied or pure, right? When you try to prove theorems, like as Juan said before, you can be years trying to prove a theorem. As we can be, usually our theorems are smaller or shorter in some sense. And then we have to look at the bugs and do the tests and so on. So in some sense, it's another challenge. It's not. I don't want to say our work is harder than. But in our situation, you have to like programming. If you don't like programming, then you are at the wrong place. But luckily, there are many students who like it.
Yeah. And perhaps that's connected to something that you said before. Your attention is divided into many different kinds of things that require many different skills as well. If you're more specialized in things that have to do with mathematics itself, then you can focus more on those things. And sometimes it's very nice to take a vacation from the other things and then just go prove theorems. Because you have a lot of fun, and it's hard, but you still, you continue, and you have difficulties, but you overcome those, and it's super rewarding, even if it's very, very hard. So, I guess the part of splitting your attention into many different things is also very, not only time-consuming, but energy-consuming.
Yeah.
But it depends. If you have fun.
Yeah, exactly.
So then that's okay.
Yeah. I mean, at some point you need a drive, right? There's a moment what you do clicks with your drive, then I think that's also producing lots of energy for you.
I was also, when you mentioned that, some things are recognized more than others, I think it also has to do with the way the profession has evolved in time. Because, I guess in a certain moment, mathematicians were doing research and teaching. Well, I guess in some, it also depends on the university. In some universities, just teaching. In research centers, just research and not teaching. And then now universities are becoming more complex and more interested in other aspects of the let's say, the scientific life of the community. And then now you have these applied projects where you participate in things with industry, or you have connections with government agencies, and you do reports for the government, for example, in order for them to make good decisions in terms of policies. And then there's also, outreach, and then there's the communication to other actors in society. I think it's gonna take a bit of time, and eventually, at some point, we're gonna end up recognizing more aspects of our job than we did, say 10 years ago. And I think already today we are at a completely different situation than 10 or 20 years ago, where there was just number of papers and that was it, I guess. Maybe grants, let's say, and probably not even
H-index.
Yeah, H-index at some point. Maybe not even teaching. And now it's there's a revival of considering other aspects of teaching and training that were not considered in their whole relevance before. So I guess it's something that is evolving. The profession is evolving, and the way to assess accomplishments in the profession is also changing little by little. Sometimes it goes faster, sometimes it gets a delay, but perhaps in 20 more years the profession will be completely different, and there will be other aspects that are going to be important to take into account that are not considered now.
Yeah, even negative results. So I know, for example, I had a collaboration with the Charité Hospital in Berlin, and that PhD student was a very good PhD student, but suddenly I saw that he published that something that actually I found very interesting. So when you do experiments, you often don't find what you want, and they have an award for that. So for the best work on negative results, and I found that very encouraging.
Interesting.
Yeah. So even the system or someone could reconsider that someone has really tried hard for something and in a serious way, and still something didn't work. That could be also because you learn from it, so that it's an investment also for the future. So it's not necessarily something that you don't tick a box.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. Like even in mathematics, very often
we
want the proof of a theorem, right?
Yeah.
And we probably take 10 different roads that do not work, but from each of those roads we learn something.
Yeah.
And having a place where we can actually say why something has not worked could be actually a very good learning experience, because that is the actual learning experience you had, in fact, to arrive to the right path. But you made also another very important point. I think we always think at the university as the university, the thing that was, say, in Bologna in 1400, like thousands of years ago. And indeed, it's an organic thing. Like it has to evolve with the societies. And already thinking about how many more students is attracting and how much more rich it has in terms of diversity of students, diversity of working class of their families, diversity of their histories, diversity of their countries they're coming from. It has become already, just because of the population of students, completely different. And then you add our experiences, which are all different because we have had very different paths across the world. And somehow it has to evolve with the time, with the society, how it changed, with the technology, how it changed, with the population of the country, of the students, of the staff that it has, how it changed. And this naturally leads it to having to evolve and adapt and change in everything, including the way we value what we are doing and how it works.
Yeah.
And I think it's something we don't think, at least I rarely stop to think at that we are actually in a sort of bureaucratic organism that has to move and evolve with the society that has internally and externally, and also in the interaction it has with the society. And it makes kind of perfect sense, even more so if I think about it in the sense of relating not just to its students, but to the population and all to the other stakeholders, being industry, being governments, and so on, that they have to interact with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was pointed from Marcello to ask the final question, even though I'm not the host. But yeah, I think it is important to also talk a bit about what's going on in Groningen. So what are we doing as in the applied and general sides. And I think as some philosophers say, every division creates conflict. And I think that's a bit arbitrary. And it's very, as we have explained, the division between applied and non-applied is quite arbitrary. And it creates conflict maybe in the students, so that they have to pick something and get that label for the rest of their lives, or at least they feel that. And of course, I hope it is clear that whatever you do, whatever your label is, you can always mutate and do different things. I think it is clear from our stories, and I think Marcello, also your story is kind of representative. So I would like to know, what do students struggle with when choosing between apply and not apply, and why do you think they choose one or the other, or what are their multiple motivations?
Yeah, so for me personally, fortunately in Groningen, the first year of the bachelor programs, applied mathematics and mathematics, is the same, which is really beneficial, because when you start studying, as you said, you might have some idea of this is applied mathematics or this is mathematics. And if you start studying it, you might find out, oh, it's less strict of a boundary as I thought that it was. And I know a lot of people that have switched in the first year to applied mathematics because it was way different than they thought that it was. And that I know one girl who was really interested in optimization, and who actually switched to do her bachelor thesis in that course, in that area. And there are multiple people who have changed that. So I know that the programs need to advertise themselves as, okay, we're to study mathematics, we're to study applied mathematics. But in fact, it's a fuzzy boundary. Also with you can follow different kind of courses from different kind of programs. And I think that when you're a first year student, you're taught, this is a real mathematics course. This is mathematics, and then this is a real applied mathematics course, and that is how your vision changes a little bit. But I think there could be more emphasis on courses being relevant to both applied mathematics and mathematics itself. Because now only when I'm in the master and talking to multiple people from the field, I feel like the boundary is not that hard. I'm also involved in organizing the open days. And I started doing that in my second year. And then I kind of had the idea like there was a very strict difference between the two studies. But as I talked to some professors and saw their presentations and I saw their views, I found out that it's not that big of a difference. So I think that is pretty important to convey to students in the first year. Because if you're stuck with the idea, this is applied mathematics and this is mathematics and this is the little box that I need to fit in, it can be pretty harmful to students, I think.
Yeah, so again, things are evolving. I don't know if it's positively or... So the curriculum is going to change a bit. So the first year is going to become fully 100% the same, except in the project.
Yeah.
So, and then in the second year, it will be more distinct. So I think students will have to make a choice earlier on,
okay.
And with just advantages and disadvantages. At the same time, they will have more space for. They will have a minor, so the minor applied math will have a minor which you can the same as in general math. You can also do something else.
Yeah.
So that's also the good thing. Well, at some point, students need to take a decision for the next step. It's not really that you need to take a decision for your whole life. Yeah. It's just what to do next. As Juan mentioned, right? It's like he didn't know that if he will do math for his whole life. Yeah. He just wanted to do math there. I think that's probably the best criterion. And maybe my feeling is that some students like more as a couple of courses. So students end up doing systems and control, for instance, or optimization because they like, or apply math because they like optimization, for instance, or some students do it because they like numerical math. The same probably happens in general math. Some students like more like mathematical physics, others like more algebra, and that's it. That's why they pick up the program. because already within the same program there are differences, right? And even among professors of the same unit there are differences. Like especially in your case a bit. So I think I would like to make first, I know what's your feeling about it, but...
Well, yes, maybe I could add that it is important to tell students that the decisions they made in terms of their career choices are not necessarily permanent.
Yeah.
So you can, it happens to a lot of people. You can start studying something and then going to something completely different. But even taking aside those extreme cases where you start doing math and then you go to philosophy or something like that, it's not that different in some cases. But yeah, you know what I mean. But in terms of math and applied math, you can start thinking that you are going to study math and then switch to applied math at some point in the first year, and then do 2 years, and then do the bachelor project with someone who works in the other side of this fuzzy boundary. And it's perfectly fine if you find some things that are compatible with your interests and the skills of the person that is going to supervise your project, then it's perfectly fine. So I think the situation is more flexible than some people give credit for. And then you can go back and forth many times in your life and then change to physics, change to whatever, computer science, machine learning. The possibilities are endless. And sometimes you think that the decisions that you make are going to be more permanent than they really are.
I think that's a very important message.
Yeah.
And I guess that with all the people that we interviews and discussed with so far, we have seen basically any kind of possible path with variation and deviations and the jumps between careers, which makes it feel lesser and lesser a survivorship bias, but more like the norm, that things do not go straight, but you change your mind, you change idea, you try different things, and you follow something that you like. And as long as you are following something that you like, you have the drive and the passion and the energy to keep pursuing it.
Yeah, I think it's important to take time to explore at any level at any moment of your life. And I would like to basically make an invitation to the students that they really approach us if they have doubts or they just want to know what we do. They can always come to us, and for instance, we cannot maybe spend a full day on one student, but what we can do, of course, we have several master, bachelor students and PhD students, and they could spend some minutes with each of them, and they can just get a glimpse of what are their projects about, and for us, which are the potential applications they're working on, the actual applications they're working on. Yeah. So I think that it's a great opportunity, and some of the students, they even don't know where our offices are, and they don't know that we have posters hanging there, and there are students they actually can talk to. So I think that should be maybe encourage that at some point the students should talk to us and to many of us, and not just after 3 years asking for a potential bachelor project. Yeah.
If may I add, sometimes it is when they go talk to you, they go talk to the professor, and sometimes they don't know they can go talk to the person as well. And there's probably a certain distance that the system puts between students and professor that is responsible for that. No one is responsible for that. It's just, and some people are more approachable than others as well. But I think most people, even the ones that seem less approachable, would appreciate the fact that some students are also interested to know about their personal experience and their career choices and why they were what they were. And something that you said, Marcello, also reminded me that it is also possible to I mean, there are different career paths. I mean, different people do manage their careers in a very different way in terms of going back and forth between domains or so on. But also some people go completely out of academia and they work in the industry or for the government for years, and then they go back to study a master or a PhD, and that's also okay. And sometimes people are a bit afraid of doing that or taking the risk of going out because they think they're not going to be able to come back. And also some people who have done that and have come back also compare themselves to people who have always stayed in academia and did everything in the right times. And for example, I was very lucky that was my case. I was pretty sure that I was going to be that I wanted to be in academia. So I did all the steps like they were supposed to be, in the sense that what everything thinks about it. So you go to bachelor and then you continue PhD and then you get your first position and so on. So I got to full professor quite young, relatively young. And sometimes I see people that compare themselves to me, but they had completely different things. They have experience in industry, for example, which I have none at all. And they say, yeah, but you were there so young. And yeah, but I mean, I was lucky in the sense that I did something in a very structured way, but it's not necessarily the thing that works best for everybody. And you have some experience that I don't have, and maybe that's going to be useful at some point, even if you're staying here. So yeah, it is also important to, the system sometimes also drives us in that direction, but you can resist it a little bit, the urge to compare yourself to others, especially other people your age or other people from the same country or whatever. Comparisons are always a bit, they have their bitter side. So they can be a bit dangerous and a bit frustrating. So yeah, that would also be an advice that I would give to students. Try to have fun in the way. Try to not to close doors permanently, because you never know when you're going to find back the interest in certain things that you thought were not going to be motivating for you in the future. So yes, so keep flexible and keep open and just try to enjoy the ride.
I am really sorry to be the bearer of bad news at this point, because we are way over time on the episode. But I think with such a positive note, it's a really good time to stop. I want to thank you very, very much for such an insightful and enjoyable conversation. So thanks for your time. Thanks, Marit. Thanks, Cristóbal. And thanks, Juan. And thanks to all the listeners for being here. And something we always forgot to tell you, if you like this episode, please share it with your friend and on your social network so that other people can benefit from it.
Subscribe.
If you like this episode, please consider sharing it with your friends and on your social media accounts.